Hey, brothers, look what's coming down. They, the head slicks themselves. Yaphet Kotto as Big Daddy Foxx. Rudy Ray Moore as Glittering Goldie. In Monkey Hustle. Teaching the young bloods how to step forth into the world of flim-flam. Scoot and scan. Cool as they come.
Show me the way, superstar.
And twice as sharp.
You sure is bad.
Badder than bad. They learn to handcuff the lightning. Chain the thunder. Walk through the graveyard and put the dead on a wonder.
So you see, in order how slick to slick, you can't be sleeping late. You gotta be up early. Hey, you gotta get your righteous scam. Run it through 5 different ways from Sundays, making sure there ain't no holes in it. Then after you run it through 5 different ways, then you're ready to jump out in the street with your bad walk, your bad down dip. You're ready for the monkey hustle.
We're not talking about actors. We mean a real monster.
I brought her back. She'll live and I'll get her another body.
I know they're gonna catch me, but don't let anyone see me like that. Please, doctor, help me!
Biologically speaking, it's of primary importance that man should want to mate. Hey, that
You don't get all your kicks from surfing, do you?
We want to be free to ride our machines without being hassled by the man. And we want to get loaded.
You think you're gonna make a slave of the world? I'll see you in hell first.
The American International Podcast.
Are you ready?
Hello and welcome to the American International Podcast. I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And I'm Jeff Markin.
And today we are going to get down with The Monkey Hustle from 1976.
The Monkey Hustle was directed by Arthur Marks, from a screenplay by Charles Eric Johnson, which itself is from a story written by Odie Hawkins, and The Monkey Hustle was produced by Arthur Marks and Robert E. Schultz.
The Monkey Hustle stars Yaphet Kotto as Daddy Foxx, Kirk Calloway as Baby D, Thomas Carter as Player, Donn Carl Harper as Tiny, Lynn Caridine as Jan Jan, Patricia McCaskill as Shirl, Lynn Harris as Sweet Potato, Rudy Ray Moore as Goldie, Rosalind Cash as Mama,
and Randy Brooks as Win, Debbi Morgan as Vi, Frank Rice as the Black Knight, Carl W. Crudup as Joe, Duchyll Martin Smith as Beatrice, Stephen Williams as the manager, Frank Barrett as Leon, Ralph Johnson as Cobra, Dewellie Colbert as Mo, and Robert Townsend as a musician.
As the Monkey Hustle opens, credits are rolling, we're hearing the funky theme song, and we see a truck driving to a remote abandoned warehouse.
It's a powder blue Ford pickup truck. Don't see those much these days.
Because it's powder blue or because it's a Ford pickup truck?
The former.
The truck comes to a stop and our lead character, Daddy Foxx, exits. He's carrying a small box and he goes up into the derelict building, ignoring the no trespassing sign.
A couple of kids are watching him go in. This is Player and Tiny, and they stealthily follow him inside. Daddy Foxx places that box on a shelf and we see that it's a clock radio. He sits down at a desk, switches on a radio, and pulls open the newspaper and begins to read.
Tiny and Player enter the warehouse and try to sneak up on Daddy Foxx, but it isn't long before Foxx spots them. They freeze when it seems like he's reaching for a gun in his desk drawer, but he's only going for a cigar. He wants to know what they're doing there, and they say they want a job. Daddy Foxx says they're going to work for him. They first have to enroll in his flim-flam school to learn the Monkey Hustle, which means learning con jobs. If they graduate, they'll be able to scam with the best of them.
And this brings us into the credits. After they play out, we see a new character. This is Mr. Molet. He's grabbing a container of milk from a parked milk truck. And then he hides it under a mailbox and then goes into a corner store. Daddy Foxx is watching all this from across the street, and he's smiling at this petty theft scene playing out before him. Daddy Foxx himself grabs that milk carton, then runs back across the street just to watch and see how this unfolds.
Mr. Molet exits the store and then walks up to a newspaper vending box. In order to get the box open, he uses a slug on a chain which he inserts in the coin slot. He steals a couple papers, and then he goes to grab his milk, only to find it gone. Aggravated, he walks off, carrying his newspapers.
From across the street, Daddy Foxx takes a swig of milk and laughs. Just then, a policeman drives by. This is Black Knight. From his car, he gives a friendly honk to Daddy Foxx and says, "Hey, Fox." And as for Fox, he puts up his fist in return greeting. Then Fox goes to throw his briefcase into the back of the truck, but it falls open, revealing its contents. There's a couple of bricks, a belt, and an old shoe.
Why? Who can say? Now we meet another one of the youths in the neighborhood. This is Baby D. He runs up to Fox, who tells him to come on. They've got a tight schedule.
Baby D is kind of Daddy Fox's protege.
He's mini-me, as it were. They drive off to the LaSalle Street station downtown. After parking the truck, Fox asks Baby D to choose a sign to put on the dashboard of the car. Choices include emergency health department, press, city welfare department, but Dee chooses the building inspector sign.
He doesn't just choose it. They're placed out back to him and he has to pick a card, so it's randomly chosen.
The two head into the station and set up their scam. Foxx pretends to be Dee's daddy and offers him advice for when Foxx is away. Then he takes his briefcase to the lockers and then tries to open some of them. I don't think he's really trying to open them. It just looks like he is.
He's looking around to get acquainted with his surroundings, and he sees a familiar face. Damn, there's the Dipper, he says. Then Foxx smiles when he sees the Dipper eyeballing a woman standing next to him. Foxx goes to a nearby security guard and points out the Dipper to him. And as he's speaking, the Dipper grabs the woman's purse and takes off running. The security guard chases after him. And Dee returns the briefcase to Foxx, who swaps it for another briefcase that someone had left sitting around. Then Foxx quietly and proudly exits as an oval iris takes us into the next scene.
And the next scene also takes place at the LaSalle Street station, where a 3-man band is heading into the station. There they're met by their manager, who wants his commission from their gig money. Wynn, the leader of the band, and the drummer, says, "What commission?" Wynn says that they hadn't been paid for their last 3 weeks of bookings, so they don't have any money, and that's why he's not getting paid. And that's why they quit and split. The manager yells at them, telling that they're ripping him off. Then the manager says their group stinks, and he even holds his nose to prove it. He claims to have booked them for 2 weeks in Vegas, but he snaps his calendar shut before they get a good look at it. One of the musicians hands the drum he's carrying to the manager and says goodbye, and then Robert Townsend's musician character says, "Man, up your nose with it," before he takes off.
Then Player and Tiny come into the station. They seem to be friendly with Wynn because they run up to greet him. They ask who this other guy is, referring to the band's ex-manager, and Wynn explains he's dead weight, trying to get money off him.
Grumbling, Wynn exits the station, followed by Tiny and Player. Outside, Tiny and Player see an amazing convertible driven by, quote, the Queen. The Queen is a very fancily dressed man, and he propositions the boys, asking them to come for a ride with him. Player says that they don't need a ride. Then he grabs Tiny, who's ogling the car, and hauls him off. They catch up with Wynn. Wynn wants to know how they got to the station. He wishes he had a rental car so that he could drive home.
Speaking of Vi, Tiny says Wynn should have seen the chick Player was with last night. Player says he was drunk, so it wasn't all his fault. She may not have been the best looking, but she was willing.
He mentions that Jan, his regular girl, won't sleep with him anymore. Wynn asks why his girl, Vi, didn't drive her mama's car down to the station. Tiny and Player refuse to comment on Vi's absence, though.
Then Wynn notices Daddy Foxx and Baby D as they go back to that powder blue truck. Wynn says that Player and Tiny were supposed to keep an eye on D while he was away. And how long has D been hanging out with Foxx this time? Ever since you left, says Player.
Just about the second he left. Nevertheless, the three hop in the back of Daddy Fox's truck when he pulls up and offers them that needed ride home. The boys jump in the back of the truck and through the broken rear window. Foxx says that he has a couple of stops to make before taking them home. And Wynn says he's got some words for D. And D says he's got some to give back to Wynn. D says someone had to make money so Mama doesn't have to work so hard. Foxx asks how Wynn's tour went down. Wynn said it went down the tubes. Foxx offers the three of them a chance to make some scratch working for him.
So Foxx is making his first stop. The truck pulls up to a house on Lake Michigan.
It's a derelict house set right on the lake with a 270-degree view of the whole downtown area. I would imagine now it would cost a hell of a lot of money to live there.
Under this house are several boxes of pork-backed ribs.
That's what the box says anyways, because it says perishable, and that's not how you store perishable things. Foxx pays the boys $5 each, all except for Wynn, who's not participating, to throw those boxes in the back of the truck. The boys want more, but before they can even ask, Foxx tells them to shut up. He offers them an opportunity to earn more money later, though.
Wynn isn't cooperating. He says he's a musician, not a flunky. And he's disappointed in his brother. He's also upset that Player and Tiny have been casting off bad vibes about Vi, but they won't tell him what's going on. Player stuffs $5 in Wynn's hand, and that's enough to get him to assist.
And his assistance is just moving one box from under the house to the truck, and then he demands to know what's up with Vi. They tell him that she's been hanging out with Leon, a guy who graduated the year before him, because Leon has coin. Tiny advises Wynn to take his class ring back, and Player says Shirl and Jan also have their noses in the air. They won't go out with either one of them because those boys are poor. Shirl asks Tiny why he doesn't have money like Leon.
Then Player lets it slip that he and Tiny got an offer from Goldie, another hustler, to run numbers for him, and Player thinks that Wynn should talk to Goldie too. Foxx warns them about Goldie. Sure, he's more big time, but because of that, he's not as under the radar as Foxx is. They'd be better off sticking with him, as they'll be more likely to stay out of trouble.
Wynn wants to know how clean Foxx's setup is. Foxx says he's just buying and selling his way to a better life, fighting for truth, justice, and the American way. He says it with a big grin. And then with another fancy transition, we find ourselves at the second stop.
They drive to some condemned and broken down buildings. Foxx sees some merchandise that might be worth taking. But then he realizes that much of the stuff belonged to him. They don't really explain what exactly has gone on here, or if they did, it went right over my head.
One thing I noticed is that the boxes were hidden fairly, but Foxx notices them. And then Dee notices that the F that Foxx had put on the side of the boxes has been changed to a B, meaning that somebody took some of Foxx's merchandise, whether legitimately or not, and rebranded it. And the person who did this is called the Rubbish Man.
The hustle seems to be that Foxx gets merchandise, switches the contents of the boxes, then passes on the junk items in their new packaging. It's a common scam that's used in Amazon returns today.
Everybody's got a hustle, man.
So anyway, Foxx plans on taking back all this stuff, plus everything else that's there. Player says they can help, but he wants to get paid. Foxx tells them that they'll get paid at the end of the day, when they clock out, like a factory. But I never heard of a factory that paid out daily.
Remember in One Summer Love where they got paid at the end at the construction site? They got paid at the end of the day?
Okay.
They start loading boxes into the truck, but then notice a rubbish truck marked with the letters B, 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 slowly rolling their way. They yell at Daddy Foxx that they've got to split. Foxx jumps up from the recliner that he'd been sitting on. He lets the boys do all the work and dashes to the truck. He manages to start it just in time to get out of the clutches of B, the rubbish man, who had been walking towards them and got close enough to reach for Win once he realized that his boxes were being stolen. Foxx and the boys drive off, triumphantly giving the bird to the rubbish man.
But the rubbish man climbs into his truck to give pursuit. Foxx pulls into a neighborhood, but there are a bunch of kids and surveyors in the street, and since he's being pursued, he jumps over the curb. Dee says he'll quit smoking and go back to school, but he takes it back once Foxx drives back onto the road.
The kids are playing in the hydrant on the street, in and around where the surveyors are working. Then we see that a couple of kids have liberated a tire or two from the surveyor's truck. The surveyors notice, finally, and start protesting, but before they can get to the kids and get their tire back, one of the kids turns the fire hose attached to the hydrant on the surveyors. The spray keeps them from rescuing their tires. B's truck rolls up to the scene, but he can't get through.
Then an oval iris reveals a new scene. We're at a new location. This is Mama's Diner. Wiping down the windows when she sees Win headed up the walk. She tells Vi and asks if she wasn't supposed to pick up Win at the airport. Vi does not seem happy to see Win. She goes out back, he follows her, and she starts yelling at him. He's been gone for weeks and she hasn't heard from him. She says she gave him stamps so he could write, and he only sent one note that said "see you soon," and she only received it yesterday.
She also mentions a collect call that her mama got, but Vi wasn't available to talk to him. Win says that he thought about her a lot, and Vi says, yeah, between chippies. He tries to make nice and asks her out for tonight, but she coldly informs him that she's already engaged for the evening. She's going out with Leon. She goes back inside, and Win follows her just in time to see her cozy up to Leon, who had just arrived. Leon tells her to wear that cashmere he bought her, and she promises to also wear the pretty dress he bought her for her birthday. They're doing all of this for Win's benefit. Leon promises to replace last year's class ring, the one that Win gave her, with something that glitters.
Leon pays her 35 cents for his coffee and gives Vi a $1 tip, and then says he'll see her tonight and leaves. Mama gives Win a cup of coffee.
He's fuming.
Vi runs up and says that'll be 35 cents. Win says he'll have to owe it to her. Mama says that's fine. She knows he's good for it. Then Win remembers that he does have some bills from his afternoon exploits, so he gives Vi money for the coffee and a little extra for her trouble. Then he skulks off.
He never even got that coffee. He didn't drink a drop. Vi does not look triumphant, though. Mama tells Vi that Win has a good heart and that her friend married a drummer and got to travel all over the world, settle in California. And has any mother ever encouraged her daughter to run off with a drummer before this? I doubt it. A frustrated Vi says, "Oh, Mama," and clomps out the front door.
And outside, Joe Johnson, the neighborhood CPA, has gathered a bunch of children to work for him. Mm-hmm. He's having them put up signs that advertise a 24-hour block party
/fundraiser/ Stop the Expressway event
at the site of the future Olympics.
Yeah, that's not really mentioned too much, but we do see some gymnastics happening later on.
Oh, it was real? I thought they were just doing that because why not?
There's a lot of things that go unexplained in this movie, that being one of them. A few blocks away, we see Player and Tiny painting a mural. Joe runs up to them and says that they're supposed to be putting up the posters. He paid them to do that. Tiny and Player say, trust them, they'll get to it. But Joe says that he saw them with Daddy Foxx and he can't trust their word, just like he doesn't trust Foxx.
We should also mention that the posters in question have been placed in a trash can that has been tipped over, so I don't think they intended to do anything with them.
He picks up the trash can, though, and for some reason gives them another $1 each to finish the poster job, though he threatens to steal their case if the job's not done when he returns. I think that's what he says. He takes off, and then so do they.
Next, Joe bumps into Win. They discuss the situation with the expressway, and somehow a block party is supposed to prevent all this from happening. Then Joe suggests that Win play the drums for that party, and Win agrees to do that.
Then Win wonders why Alderman Black hasn't stopped this expressway coming through their neighborhood. Joe says that he's going to talk to him and remind Black that he's not one of those white dudes. Then we see flamboyant pimp Goldie park his sweet ride in front of Mama's house. A bunch of men, including the Dipper and Mr. Molet, come out to greet Goldie. He's very popular in the neighborhood. Goldie looks at Molet and sees the rolled up papers in his coat pocket. He pulls them out of Molet's pocket and yells at him for engaging in petty theft. That makes them all look bad in the neighborhood. But if he wants to do some serious thieving, Goldie can show him how it's done. Inside Mama's, the cook is a familiar face, and he seems to really enjoy his job. He does everything with flair, and we saw him in Cooley High as Detective Number 1, a.k.a. George. Goldie attempts to flirt with Mama and maybe establish a little corner to do business there. Mama says no to both, but she will fill up his stomach with some good food. Goldie says he's going to try again next week. And then Goldie chases off a group of construction men who are eating at a table and sits himself down. Then Daddy Foxx comes in and, seeing Goldie, joins him at his table. Goldie tries to make Foxx an offer he can refuse, so he does. Goldie had offered to let Foxx work for him, but Foxx says the interest is too high. But apparently Goldie still owes Foxx a favor, but Foxx plans to keep Goldie on the hook for now and save that favor for a rainy day. And they both have a good chuckle about it. And now we're out on a street where a new character who is known as Sweet Potato in the credits and possibly on the street. And the reason for that is because she's wearing a shirt that says Sweet Potatoes. She's bent over trying to pick up some signs that are sitting on the sidewalk. Baby D comes up behind her and pinches her butt. Sweet Potato does not smack him, though, when she stands up and sees who did that. But when he asks for a chance to go out with her, she reminds them of their insurmountable age gap. She's 16 and he's only 14. He suggests they discuss it over a hot sweet potato pie and a Coke, and she says okay, in about 10 years. Then she walks away, but turns her head back to make sure he's watching her as she leaves. And now we're back with Leon. He comes out of a phone booth just as a couple of his associates, Cobra and Mo, come up to greet him on the sidewalk. Cobra and Mo hand Leon a sack of cash, a literal brown paper sack, and report on some jailbait they met and can't wait to turn out once this jailbait graduates high school. Her name's Tanya, and we will see her later. They say Leon should get some of that, meaning the young girl, Ilk. But Leon sees Vi walking across the street and tells his buddies why should he settle for hamburger when he's got filet mignon. He then promises to introduce them to Vi's foxy friends. Again, Ick. Cobra and Mo leave, and Leon puts the paper bag into a satchel, which he hands over to the Black Knight as he drives by. Elsewhere, Wynn is playing blues harmonica by the lake. Vi comes by, I guess this is where she was headed, and she sadly stares at him. Wynn doesn't notice her. She looks conflicted, but leaves before he spots her. Now we're at Mr. Molet's discount store, in the back. Foxx appears to be betting on the ponies, and Molet is taking the bets down. In the middle of all this, our friend the Black Knight arrives to scoop up any bags of cash that happen to be lying around. Then he mentions in passing that Cobra and Mo are hitting the warehouse tonight. Molet had given Cobra and Mo the key this afternoon when they stopped by to pick up the books. And Black Knight says he can't stay. He's got a meeting with Goldie. Before he gets away, though, Foxx asks him why the Black Knight has to brown-nose Goldie, but the Black Knight does not want to talk about it. Foxx wonders out loud whose side the Black Knight is on. Seems to me he's on his own side, though. Now we're back at Mama's. Player is dancing with a girl, and she tells him her name is Tanya. Uh-oh. The jailbait. She starts to lead him outside when Tanya runs up. Hey, where are we going? Player tells him we aren't going anywhere, gives Tanya a couple of pats on the cheek, then follows Tanya outside. As they step out, Shirl and Jan Jan are walking up to Mama's. Seeing Player with another woman, Jan Jan tells Cheryl to hold her purse. She confronts Player. Player claims that Tanya is just his cousin, but Jan Jan's not buying this. Tanya decides that she's going to exit this unfolding drama. However, Jan Jan decides to take her ire out on Tanya, and a girl fight erupts on the lawn. Clothes are torn, wigs are ripped off, and the whole neighborhood is entertained by the display, including Mr. Molet and Player, who looks a bit too pleased with himself at this turn of events. Then the Black Knight pulls up and tries to break up the fight. And for the first time, he's going to do some police work. But the two girls stop fighting each other and start pummeling him instead. As he's being beaten up by girls, the Black Knight says he's the police, and then the girls get up and run away. The rest of the assembled crowd laugh at the cop, who walks off cursing all of them. Next we see Player and Tiny are casing on a movie theater from across the street. Leon comes out of the theater, from apparently just watching JD's Revenge according to the poster behind him. I'm jealous. We'll see it eventually. I would rather be watching that. He puts on his hat and continues around the corner. Player reminds Tiny that Leon hurt their buddy and vows revenge for Wynn's sake. The boys follow him to an alley, where they confront him. Leon pulls out a switchblade, but after a brief discussion decides that he can fight them without it. Player gets the upper hand in the beating right away, and then Leon rallies and starts beating up Player. Tiny's just watching. After a few more punches, Tiny tries to pull Player off so that they can run for it, and they do. After a few more punches, Tiny pulls Player off of Leon, and they run for it.
Then back at Mama's, Vi is upstairs and she yells down goodnight before headed to bed. Then back downstairs, Foxx comes in with a box that appears to contain candy and a dozen roses. He comes behind Mama and grabs her from behind. She turns around and they kiss. She tells him she doesn't know what she's supposed to call him. The Phantom, Daddy Foxx, etc. And Foxx says that's a mystery.
He's either a poet, a hustler, or both. He's honestly charming, but he's always on the make. Then he asks Mama's help to leave that chilly jungle outside, meaning stop worrying about the outside world and get it on inside. Outside the house, Wynn decides on a little breaking and entering. He climbs up to the second-story floor and then goes in Vi's open window. She's asleep with her arms outstretched in some kind of weird crucifixion pose.
For some reason, Wynn has his shirt tied in a knot in front of him like he's Daisy Duke or something.
There are so many crop tops in this movie, and not one of them is worn by a woman.
Anyway, Wynn gently wakes Vi up. He tells her he can explain everything and that he loves her. And that seems to be all the explanation they need because they start to kiss.
And now it's the next day. We're at the community center gym. Joe and his girl Beatrice, we'll see her later, she works for him, meet and have a brief smooch. Tiny, Wynn, and Player arrive. Tiny and Player ogle the girls for a bit, but then see the sour expressions on Jan and Shirl's faces and go to try to sweet-talk them a little to get back in their good graces.
Jan's playing hard to get until she sees the wad of cash that Player accidentally flashes in front of her. Then Jan decides as long as Player's treating, Jan and Shirl will go along with them. They go to grab their things, and Tiny asks Player where he got that dough. Player opens up the cash to reveal that most of it is pieces of newspaper with a couple of bills on the outside. Another girl in the gym also saw Player flash his wad, so she comes over to say hello. Player greets her and says he just carries around those bills in case he meets a lady with potential, and she looks like a lady with potential, so he kisses her hand, which Jan sees, and then she goes on the attack.
Jan returns to unleash her fury on, once again, the wrong person, and she chases the new chick around the gym and out the door. And then we cut to Wynn in his bedroom. Someone has destroyed his drums and scribbled the words, "You been warned, sucka," on the wall.
Player and Tiny are there, and I guess the implication is that it was Leon who did this, since no one else would have a vendetta against him. Player says he should have killed Leon when he had the chance. Wynn corrects him and says that he should have left Leon alone.
Yeah, Wynn could have handled it. Now we're at Fox's warehouse office. Foxx is giving a lesson in Monkey Hustle 101 to Tiny, Baby D, Player, and Wynn. Wynn is not enjoying the lesson, though. He's got a lot on his mind. He doesn't want any part of this planned con, but Foxx says, all for one and one for all. They're all in or nobody's in.
So now it's field study. That powdered blue truck is backed up to BBB's garbage truck behind Molet's discount store. D, Player, Tiny, and Wynn unload a bunch of boxes of Quasar TVs into the back of the garbage truck and then cover them with tree branches. Then they all scatter and Foxx drives his truck away. As the rubbish collector returns, Molet comes out to dump some of his own trash into his cans. Molet watches as the rubbish collector dumps a can of boxes into the back of his truck before leaving to return that can. Then as Molet watches, Foxx brings out his powder blue truck again, and the kids all come from the field, grab the TV boxes from the back of the garbage truck, throw it back in the powder blue truck before they all take off themselves. So this seems to have all been done for the benefit of being seen by Molet.
Then the rubbish man B returns and drives off, unaware of what has transpired in the back of his truck. Then Foxx, who had parked nearby, walks away from his truck. Molet's still watching as the boys return, unload some of those TV boxes from the back of the truck, and put them behind some cans that are sitting nearby. Then everybody but D leaves. Molet comes over to him and offers to buy those TVs for $55.
D says $100. Molet says $60. D says $75. Molet says he'll call the cops. And D says $55 is good. So they have a deal. Molet pays D, asks him to watch the boxes while he goes to get a dolly. Molet leaves and D signals the others, who will all run out from the alley, grab the TV boxes, and run back down the alley. D stashes some of that money into his sock before running off himself. Molet returns with his dolly only to find his purchase has disappeared. He starts to call out for help. He's been robbed. Then he realizes this is a crime he can't report.
He can't call the man. In another location, we see the guys dump the debris out of those TV boxes.
From the truck that they left behind.
Yeah, somehow they went back for the truck because they had left it behind. We're trying to describe this as best we can. It makes almost no sense. Foxx gives the boys their money. Each of the four get $9. Not a big haul for all that work. Tiny and Player donate their cuts to Wynn so that he can buy new drums. Wynn is grateful, and the three happily run off.
Foxx tells D that a few more scams like this and they'll be able to buy Wynn a whole new set of drums. That is, as long as D forks over the rest. Smiling, Dee retrieves the money he had stashed away in his sock and hands it over to Foxx.
And now, a scene that barely matters, we oval iris into a movie theater. Player and Jan Jan are making out on the stage. I guess all is forgiven. Jan Jan says the floor is cold and demands that Player be the one to lay on the stage and she can be on top. In the seats, Tiny and Shirl are making out, and Tiny's trying to get her to go further, but she's got the curse. And then the Black Knight arrives and chases everybody off. That's the end of that.
Now we're at the office of Joe Johnson, certified public accountant, and he's on the phone yelling at Alderman Black about not doing anything about the expressway coming in. Beatrice is there with her sister, who is Sweet Potato. Sweet Potato is looking out the window where Daddy Foxx and Baby D are loading the truck. Dee waves up at her. Joe warns Sweet Potato that she shouldn't be hanging around with guys like that.
Beatrice chides Joe a little bit for dissing Dee, but Joe has his opinions. She tries talking to her sister. She calls her Quan, but Sweet Potato says that Beatrice isn't her mother and storms out. And then we're out on the street. Mr. Molet's coming down from the elevated station, and Joe chases after him. Joe wants to know what a set of drums would cost to rent just for the party. Mr. Molet says $150, but he's more interested in the commotion happening outside his shop. There's a lot of people gathered outside his discount store.
Molet goes inside where he finds Player, Tiny, and Win jamming. Player is on trumpet, Tiny on bass guitar, and Win is, of course, on the drums.
It all sounds terrible, too.
Even so, people are dancing, including Jan Jan and Shirl, who apparently work there. Molet chases everyone off and tells Jan Jan and Shirl to get back to work.
And now we're elsewhere in the neighborhood, where Goldie rolls up in his, I don't know what kind of car it is, but it's absolutely gorgeous, and parks. He gets out and...
I think it should be noted that Goldie is wearing a gold sequined fishnet vest.
It's not gold sequined, it's like gold chain with little gold coins hanging off of it. It's backless with tiny chains connecting it. There's nothing under this vest, except for bare skin and chest hair. I wrote down what it was, but I still can't describe it adequately. I just wrote down what I saw.
There's also a collar with 3 tassels, and he's wearing what looks like a golden cabbie hat.
I thought it was a sailor hat.
It's like a cab driver's hat.
It's stunning. That's all I can say. He calls over Player, Tiny, and Win. He's mad because they put Leon out of commission for a while, and that costs Goldie money. He asks his dentist for some cosmetic gold teeth, and to buy them, he of course needs the cash. But before that can be addressed, Foxx and Baby D stroll by, and Goldie glares at Foxx.
What it is, asks Foxx. Win again tells Dee that he shouldn't be hanging out with Foxx. Dee replies that Win may be his brother, but Foxx is his daddy, and maybe if Win can find his real daddy, then they can talk. But until then Dee remembers that Win is only his half-brother, and he runs off. Foxx swats at Dee with his hat as he's running off, but Dee is gone. Foxx tells Win he should lay off of Dee, or he risks driving him away for sure.
And Win agrees and runs after Dee. And Tiny and Player follow, leaving Foxx and Goldie alone. Goldie wants Foxx to stop pimp blocking him. He can help those boys earn some real cash. Plus, they owe him for the loss of Leon. But Foxx says let those young bloods be, and he'll introduce Goldie to someone well-connected in the Justice Department, or system. This was a little incomprehensible. But Goldie says that he's got people to answer to as well, and he can't just let it go. But then Foxx makes an ostentatious departure to make sure that Goldie is aware that he's not backing down. We next find ourselves outside Mama's Soul Food Kitchen, and then inside, where Dee is taking money off even littler kids, betting on whether a tower of flapjacks will fall or set a new record.
At a table, we see Player and Jan Jan and Tiny and Shirl and Win all sitting together. Player says something about a way to get drums for the party, so he says he and Tiny have got to go. They've got to take care of business.
This is news to Tiny, who gets a thwack on the back from Player until he agrees to leave. And as they push their way outside, we see Dee trying to mac on Sweet Potato, but she pushes him away.
Outside, Tiny asks what's up, and Player tells him they're going to outslick the slick, rob the teacher, in order to get those drums.
In Fox's warehouse, though, Dee has opened every box of merchandise, and to Tiny's delight, discovers they're all empty. And eventually even Player has to laugh at the absurdity of this.
Now we're at the roller skating rink, where apparently all the kids in the neighborhood have decided to hang out this one night. Outside, Dee and Sweet Potato and a bunch of younger kids are hanging out. Dee collects money from each of them and puts it in a paper bag and drops it off with Black Knight as he drives by. Dee tells Black Knight not to put the slips under the floorboards of Daddy Fox's truck anymore. This is Dee's action.
The Black Knight agrees. We don't know what slips are, and I don't think we ever will. Then Dee tries to get his entourage into the rink, but the manager deems them all too young and sends everyone home, except for Dee and Sweet Potato, of course.
Inside, we see Tiny hanging out with Shirl and Player skating with Jan Jan. Win and Vi are there too. We haven't seen Vi in a while. Win and Vi take a break from skating to sit and talk. Win is depressed. He has no bread, no skins, and no gig. Vi tells him his luck is about to change. The moon is moving into Aquarius.
Win is not cheered by this news, but then he laughs and predicts that it means he's going to be discovered by a talent agent at the block party, and then they'll ride off into the sunset together. Vi says nope, they're going to drive off into the sunset in his new car. Then Wynn can treat her to that weekend away that he promised her.
Now we see Dee taking Sweet Potato into the backseat of a car. She warns him that all she's going to do is let him kiss her. They go into the car and she immediately stops him from putting his hand under her shirt, saying it'll stunt his growth.
Now we see Vi and Wynn sharing a tender moment outside in the street near Mama's when Cobra and Mo sneak up on them. They attack, and after Vi fails to stop them, she runs home to where Mama and Foxx are.
At Mama's, Foxx is trying to convince Mama to lend him $150 for drums when Vi comes running in, hysterically saying that they're killing Wynn in the park. So Foxx, Mama, and Vi run to the park, and then Foxx joins the Molet. After a struggle, he punches out Mo, and Cobra takes off running. Then Mama and Vi tend to Wynn, who had been beaten rather badly.
They bring him home for some first aid, and then Foxx lectures Wynn a little bit. He's wasting his talent and should get off the streets. He goes to leave, and Mama asks if she'll see him later, and he says she will. And then Vi tends to Wynn's injuries.
Player and Tiny seem to have come up with another plan to get drums for the party, because they, along with Dee, are on the rooftop of Molet's discount store, and they have lowered a rope ladder down through the skylight, and Tiny has gone down to grab a drum set. Nobody realizes the silent alarm has been triggered. When the bass drum is pulled up and Tiny makes his way back up to the roof, the Black Knight shows up in response to the alarm.
The Black Knight climbs up to the roof and confronts the boys, and Dee shoots at the Black Knight with a flare gun. It momentarily blinds him. Player attempts to run off with a bass drum, but when the Black Knight gets too close to him, Player smashes the drum over the cop's head. Nobody takes a drum with them as they go, and so this whole mission was for nothing.
This was another fun, cute scene that accomplished nothing. Now we see the Neighborhood Conman's Association meeting is in progress. Among those present are Foxx, Goldie, Molet, and Black Knight.
Everyone agrees with Goldie. The highway cannot come through this neighborhood. Goldie says that they're going to put the squeeze on those suckers, and everyone agrees. I guess they're talking about the city? And with that, Goldie sends everyone away, except for Daddy Foxx. Goldie tells Foxx that Alderman Black is in his seat thanks to Goldie, but he can only use his influence so far. He needs Foxx to make the alderman do what needs to be done to stop that expressway.
Setup is underway for the block party. A banner says, "Save the home of the future Olympics. Keep the killer expressway out."
People are putting food on the tables, and the Black Knight supervises all the action. That is, until Foxx pulls his next con.
Foxx and the friendly neighborhood prostitute have staged a transaction for the Black Knight's benefit. Foxx gives the prostitute money, all within view of the Black Knight. When the prostitute turns to leave, she turns around and waves to the Black Knight as she goes. Then Dee comes over to the Black Knight, hands him a satchel of money, and in return, Black Knight gives him some slips.
All this is being done for Fox's benefit.
Foxx calls out Dee, and Dee runs off, and Black Knight jumps into his car and drives off. Foxx smiles. Everything is going according to plan.
Whatever that plan is. Now we're outside a townhouse. The Black Knight is driving past. Foxx, the streetwalker, and another guy are inside the townhouse, looking out. The streetwalker and the man go outside and stage a purse snatching for the Black Knight to see. The man takes the prostitute's purse and attempts to run off.
She gives chase and starts fighting with the guy as Black Knight runs over to help. Meanwhile, Daddy Foxx strolls on over to Black Knight's car and relieves that satchel of the money inside.
Looked like it's about $208.
Yeah, there's plenty to buy a set of drums. The guy runs off, and as he does, the woman knees the Black Knight in the groin. She tells him not to worry about him. Is he okay?
And she offers to let him escort her home for a little TLC, if you know what we mean. A little while later, the party is in full swing. A band is playing, and of course, Wynn is beating the drums. Those drums still have the price tag on them.
But that doesn't make them unplayable. The band is rocking out, and everyone is dancing. And it seems everyone indeed is there. It looks like the whole neighborhood has turned out.
Goldie is there dancing, and Mr. Molet and Foxx have a tense meeting, but all is well after that.
This goes on for a while, but the party does start to slow down when two bulldozers arrive to start demolishing buildings. Joe Johnson starts arguing with the city official who accompanied them.
A bunch of people at the party decide to put themselves between the bulldozers and the condemned building, but the city official says he's going to move them and knock down the building anyways. But never fear, Dee and his kid army are armed and ready, that fire hose that they attach to the hydrant.
Joe tells him he can do his thing and they'll do theirs. He signals Dee and the hose is switched on. The bulldozer operators and the city official are doused with water and pelted with plates of food.
And other people with fire extinguishers spray them with those as well. Somehow they've had a bunch of those just lying around.
The onslaught continues until Alderman Black is brought in to announce that the expressway project is off.
He rolls up in a limo wearing a loud suit and announces that the highway project has been rerouted. Hooray! Of course, that means that the bulldozer crew was sent out by people who knew that they didn't have to be there, which allowed them to be attacked. Anyway, Foxx and Goldie share a look. Apparently, it's they who made this happen.
The celebration is short-lived, however, because Cobra, Mo, and Leon drive up, looking for revenge. The crowd charges at their car. "Kick their ass," yells Goldie. "They don't work for Goldie no more." Cobra, Mo, and Leon drive off in retreat, and Win, Player, and Tiny hop into Fox's truck to take off after them.
Before they can get too far, Cobra crashes into the Black Knight's cop car. The cop runs up to the scene and is very distressed to see his car wrecked. He groans and throws his hat on the ground. That's about all he can do, for now. Tiny, Player, and Win exit the truck, and before Cobra, Mo, and Leon can get out of the car, they're already beating them up. Even Tiny throws a punch, much to his regret. He really hurts his hand.
Black Knight comes up and tells them to stand back. He's going to show them what a Black Knight can do, holding onto his gun and nightstick, but instead they leave because Cobra, Mo, and Leon are unconscious. "Lucky for them," says Black Knight.
We assume they get arrested, but who knows?
So Win, Player, and Tiny return to the block party.
Vi looks worried, but once Win returns, she runs to him. And Jan and Shirl run to their men as well.
And we see that the manager from the beginning of the movie is also at this block party. He tells Win he's got him booked for 2 weeks. He's just going to need his commission up front this time. Win asks Vi if she's willing to take a rain check on that weekend getaway. And she says sure for 2 weeks' pay.
I can't believe Win is falling for this again. And then Foxx sees Dee. He calls after him and Dee runs. Foxx chases him. And then suddenly it's the next day and everyone's in different clothes. Foxx is frog marching Dee through the schoolyard.
Foxx tells Dee that he shouldn't be running scams on his own yet. He's still in training. And where he needs to be is school.
Outside the school, they're greeted by a stern-looking matron who relieves Dee of his cigar and hauls him into the school. And Dee vows revenge on Foxx for doing this to him.
Now we're back at LaSalle Street Station. Foxx is working his briefcase switch. He watches the new arrivals, looking for a mark with a similar briefcase. He finds one and follows his mark. Then when he goes to make the switch, Dee is there and he flags down that same security guard from earlier and points Foxx out as he's about to steal that briefcase.
Foxx has no choice but to drop both bags and run. And the next time we see them, they're hauling ass down the street, the Chicago Tribune building behind them.
Foxx commends Dee on his skills, saying he must have had a good teacher.
And then the credits roll and we get to meet the cast again. There's a few brief scenes, but honestly, that's the end. Welcome back to the American International Podcast, where we're talking about The Monkey Hustle from 1976.
The budget for The Monkey Hustle was $300,000. According to an article in the Decatur Review, The Monkey Hustle storyline mirrored a real-life protest against a planned superhighway that would cut through Chicago's South Side.
On July 9th, 1976, Maggie Daley's column in the Chicago Tribune announced that The Monkey Hustle planned to start filming all around town, beginning on July 14th, and that the movie's cast would be announced the following Friday. Daley reported that director Arthur Marks and producer Bob Schultz and staff, quote, had been working day and night in pre-filming work, and that Marks, who directed the Perry Mason series for years, hadn't had a chance to see Raymond Burr, who was in town performing The Good Doctor on stage at the Drury Lane Theater, but that he'd arrange a visit as soon as he could.
Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times wrote an article from the set of Monkey Hustle, published in August of 1976. He described a scene filmed on South Ellis Street, saying, "There were kids everywhere and flags flying from the houses and trees and stands overflowing with food and soul music by a neighborhood band called the CBs. It looked just like a block party, except for the determined banner stretched overhead, 'Keep the Killer Expressway Out.' The party was thrown by the South Ellis Block Club, but the banner was contributed by American International Pictures."
And luckily we have this article because almost all of the production information I found out about this movie came from that. In the same article, Ebert described a scene where Yaphet Kotto's character Daddy Foxx was trying to drum up support for his anti-expressway scheme, with groups of locals dancing in the background as Kotto walked up and down the street. Prop food was set up for the block party scenes, but later the extras and volunteers were served box lunches when there was a break in filming.
Harlan Hayes, president of the Block Club, told Ebert that some people were not happy with the movie filming in their neighborhood. A few of the neighbors had been bothered by the fact that the movie would be a commercial venture, but we liked what the movie was about, he said. It's about people who do show faith in a neighborhood, even despite the feelings of frustration.
Director Arthur Marks told Ebert that he and the cast and crew, quote, "We're having a wonderful time filming here. They used to say Chicago wasn't particularly crazy about movies being made here, but we've had great cooperation. The police have gone out of their way to be helpful."
Mark said he chose the Ellis Street location because he liked the look of it. "We scouted several locations. I liked the open space for the block party. I like Chicago in general." Marks told Ebert he was planning to shoot another movie in Chicago in 1976, tentatively titled Mr. Chicago. The Monkey Hustle was Mark's last feature film effort, though.
Kotto told Ebert he liked the fact that Monkey Hustle was a comedy. He said, quote, "I've been in so many rough and tumble blood and violence movies, I'm sick of them. I'm having a much better time here. Kotto had just got done filming a movie called Drums, in which his character had to box Ken Norton, and he promoted the film while he was in Chicago. According to AIP's press book, this was Kotto's first ever comedic role.
Kotto also said that he and the other Angelians in the cast noticed that they were calling the highway a freeway, LA style, instead of the Midwest term expressway, and also said that the Monkey Hustle was a cross between The Sting and Oliver Twist, and that he was playing the role Paul Newman would have had if Marx had offered it to him. The movie's entertainment. It has no sex, no violence, no message. I think we're getting away from the idea that all black movies have to be violent, filled with rapes and all that.
Rudy Ray Moore got the part after someone who had seen him in Dolomite told Arthur Marx that Moore would be perfect for the director's new movie. But when Moore read for the part, he was, as Marx puts it, dreadful, until Marx told him to throw away the script and just be himself. Quote, then he was really terrific, just what the film needed, Marx said in an interview conducted for the book Blaxploitation Cinema by Josiah Howard.
Moore used money he earned from his popular comedy albums to produce his successful star vehicles, Dolomite and The Human Tornado. He is quoted in the AIP press book for Monkey Hustle as enjoying working for another director. For the first time, states Rudy, I can concentrate on my acting and let somebody else worry about production problems.
The Monkey Hustle was released on December 24, 1976. The AIP press book recommended that theater owners stage a block party in a roped-off area in front of their location, which was a bold choice considering that the movie's opening date guaranteed that cold weather would be affecting a large portion of the country at the time. Quote, the games and all the food sold should have names pertinent to the film, i.e. monkey dogs, hustle sandwiches, con punch, etc., wrote the creative person in AIP's marketing department, whereas I feel hot dogs and pig ear sandwiches would be more appropriate.
A more weather-friendly idea was a Monkey Hustle dance party contest promotion near their location, offering prizes from local merchants, free admission tickets to the movie, or other prizes going to the person who devised the most original dance that could go by the name of the Monkey Hustle. AIP suggested that the theater owners hire musicians, radio station personnel, or dancers or dance instructors as the judges.
Finally, AIP included a coloring page made from an image from one of the Monkey Hustle posters and offered the idea of putting the image in, quote, local or ethnic newspapers, end quote, to create a coloring contest to engage potential young moviegoers. Taglines for the Monkey Hustle include, meet Daddy Foxx, Baby D, and Goldie. They gonna do the Monkey Hustle.
It ain't legal and it sure ain't safe, but it do seem worthwhile.
Roger Ebert, who had written such a nice article about the filming of the Monkey Hustle, only gave it 1.5 stars out of 4, calling it a, quote, good-hearted muddle, a totally confused movie that manages to be fun from time to time. It was shot entirely on location in Chicago, but they must have left half the script back in Hollywood. Some of the scenes lead nowhere, some of the characters hardly seem to have a reason for being in the movie, and it's still a mystery to me how they kept the expressway from coming through, end quote. Ebert mentioned the scene where Foxx and his minions steal and then sell Molet the empty TV boxes as having a kind of cheerful illogic, but said most of the scenes didn't work that well.
The brief review in the LA Times said the movie was scrambled and ungelled but inoffensive. The Muskegon Chronicle's mini-review called it tasteless and wobbly, and said it was loaded with confusing street lingo, unnecessary brutality, and moral confusion. It's the audience that will be hustled by this blatantly bad film.
Lawrence Van Gelder in the New York Times called The Monkey Hustle a movie of jellied brain and idiot eyes, like the defective product of combining an old Andy Hardy movie and modern black urban life. He emphasized the brutality of the characters, saying, this movie's major hustle will be to separate from their money and time the adolescents who might logically be the Monkey Hustle's audience, if it merited one.
Edward L. Blank in the Pittsburgh Press called the movie a dud and vilified the producers, saying, the existence of a movie like The Monkey Hustle makes a single insulting point clear. The producers are convinced they can make a quick buck from black audiences by slapping together a collection of badly made scenes and calling it a movie. Blank praised the performances of Kotto and Cash. It's always disconcerting to see pros slumming. The caption under a photo of the two read, something sparkling in the trash.
Ouch. John Fricolo in the Lexington Herald was much kinder, saying, quote, Monkey Hustle has a good black cast delivering a message you may not want to hear or even let your kids hear. If you want to live, you've got to hustle. He said, quote, the film is enjoyable with the cast enveloped in a contagious spirit of fun, but every male in the picture is on the take, or at least in various stages of learning the game of the con man. Sometimes films of this sort have an accidental way of backing into reality. This may be the case here.
Recommending that casting directors see the film, the Variety review stated, there's not an awkward performance, even at the bit level.
Louis Beale, looking back at the blaxploitation genre in his 2009 article in the LA Times, said about the film, quote, it may not have been high art, but in its own sneaky way, The Monkey Hustle was truly glorious. He quoted Michael Jai White, who starred in and co-wrote the blaxploitation spoof Black Dynamite, as saying, quote, it was just brash, unlike anything I'd ever seen. I remember these bigger-than-life characters who reminded me of my uncles, and it was the first time I saw anything familiar in my life on the big screen. All right, Jeff, now is a portion of our podcast where we talk about how we felt about the film. What are your thoughts on the monkey hustle?
Well, this was a strange one, isn't it?
It is, but I don't think that's a bad thing.
There's a lot of things to note here. I think the most obvious thing is that this movie plays more like a dream than any kind of reality.
I was going to say a fairy tale.
Things happen and they seem to be somewhat connected, but are they really?
Well, you mentioned this was a caper movie, and it is. But in caper movies that we're used to seeing, your Oceans 11, 12, 13, the caper is spelled out. All the parts of it are labeled, so we know what's going to happen. The mechanics are there. They don't go that way, of course. Something goes wrong every time. But at least we know what the plan is. Here, if there is a plan, it doesn't make sense. We don't know what it is. And did it work? I guess it worked for a while anyway. But how?
I'm not sure how, but the end goals were met. They got drums for the party, and somehow the party stopped the expressway from coming through.
Well, Goldie and Foxx did something. But what did they do? We don't know. And we never will. That being said, though, this movie is a lot of fun.
There's some fun moments. I wish it was just a lot less confusing.
Yeah, I guess if you don't get hung up on thinking about the plot, this movie is fun. If you do, you're not going to enjoy it as much.
That's why I say it plays like a dream, because each moment is fun on its own. But when you string it together and try to make a storyline, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it may not hold up. I did enjoy the acting in the movie. Yaphet Kotto is so good in this movie.
He's got such a great smile.
He does, and he's so charming, and you just want to watch him all the time. And we switched to other characters, unfortunately. But Rudy Ray Moore is also a treat. He's just this little spark that comes to life every time he's on screen.
I think a part of that is his wardrobe.
Of course, in his car. Dang, I love that car. It's sort of blue-green and sparkly.
And speaking of wardrobe, there are just some really interesting wardrobe choices in this film.
Such as?
Well, we mentioned the crop tops.
Oh, yeah. Only on boys.
Yeah. And several of the guys have their shirts knotted in the front.
Yeah. It's almost like they got the girls' wardrobe instead of their own. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. I know I was happy to see Debbi Morgan as Vi. This is a me thing because she was on All My Children forever. And I loved her as Angie on that show. So seeing her in an early role, she's young here and she's a little overdramatic, but she's playing an 18-year-old and she's supposed to be overdramatic. I think that totally fit. And even though the hustles made no sense, I enjoyed the spirit in which they were carried out.
The whole movie is about the community coming together to stick it to the man. And that's something we all take a lesson from, I think.
Right. Yeah, even though they have these petty things that they work against each other, when it comes down to it, this whole neighborhood is united. And you're right. We need to be united against the man for whatever's coming our way.
We kind of touched on some of the scene transitions. There's basically two that they used. There's a checkerboard wipe, and then there's an oval iris wipe.
Yeah, it reminded me of using the video toaster when I did video editing in the, was it 2000s, 1990s, 2000s?
It would have been the 90s, yeah.
We both worked at a local TV station, and we got this editor called the video toaster. We were not allowed to use any of those wipes by a manager, so we just had to do straight up transitions. But no one told them they couldn't use them in this movie.
Well, they weren't using a video toaster. This is 1975, but...
Right. It's the wipes.
There were transitions that would become popular with the video toaster.
Oh, they didn't have the falling sheep
one, though. They didn't have the falling sheep or the kiki effects. Kiki effects, for those who are not in the industry and don't know, was a silhouette of a woman doing various things, pulling down a shade, and that would be the transition, or just twisting around across the screen. And her name was Kiki.
I did not know her name. Like I said, I know we are not allowed to use those transitions ever.
There were a few scenes that didn't seem like they finished before transitioning to new ones.
These cons don't make any sense. So maybe they just cut them short because they didn't really know where to go with them. The writer or the director kind of threw up their hands and just sort of assumed that we would make it work in our heads while we watched the movie.
A little more coverage would have solved a lot of these mysteries, like when they drive up to that house and there's the boxes of ribs under the house. Maybe something showing where those ribs came from in the first place would be helpful.
We know there aren't ribs in there. It's summertime and they're outside. If there was meat in those boxes, they'd be slimy and smelly and unusable. So that didn't make any sense. The dialogue in this movie was kind of a challenge for us, I have to admit. I think at one point we were thinking of the line from Airplane, "Stewardess, I speak jive," because This movie did need a little translation.
Yeah, we'd watch a bit of a scene and talk to each other about what we think they might have been talking about.
I think we got it right, but I think it did take a moment for us.
And we had to translate into English that we can understand.
I wouldn't say we had to translate it into English, but we had to translate it into layman's terms. Let's put it that way.
Because we are laymen. There is one moment that I question more than others and has nothing to do with the hustles here. But if beating up Leon was enough to take on a commission, how did he trash Wynn's room and drums?
He could have had Cobra and Mo do it.
It might be as simple as that explanation, I guess. Yeah.
We'll never know. Like I said, a lot of things you just have to let it flow over you. You can't stop and think about it.
And again, that's why I say it's like a dream.
Yeah.
Because stuff happens. It may be extremely illogical, especially taken with the context of what has happened before and after. But in the moment, you just go with it because it's obviously happening because you're seeing it.
Can't deny it. I don't know. I had a lot of fun watching this movie, even the second time around. And I feel very fondly about it, despite all its flaws, of which there are many.
Roger Ebert wrote about how he wasn't sure how the expressway situation wrapped up. And I think that's pretty funny because you mentioned that Goldie and Foxx share this look. So obviously they had something to do with it. We don't know what it is. Roger Ebert missed the look apparently because he had no idea.
Even with the look, we still don't know what they did, just that they did something.
But I love the idea that the city sent 2 bulldozers down to take down a building.
For nothing. They were going to take it down. If they hadn't stopped them, they would have done it anyways.
Well, even if they did, it's just 2 bulldozers.
Yeah. And
they push dirt and debris and stuff. They don't knock down buildings.
Right. They should have got a...
That's extremely dangerous if you're going to drive a bulldozer into a building because it's just going to collapse down on top of you. You normally would use a wrecking ball, maybe dynamite.
Yeah, they'd implode it. Because these are like 5-story buildings. These aren't just houses, which even so would be difficult for a bulldozer to take out.
So at that point, I was rooting for the city. I wanted to see how this was going to pan out.
It did seem like those poor guys went down there just to get attacked. Like somebody sent them down there, knowing that they weren't supposed to be there. They had nothing to do.
Bruce, you're going on this one.
Oh no!
No questions. This is yours.
And then they come back and they quit or they file workman's comp or something. They're in a union, I'm sure. This will not stand. It's funny. I think I kind of fell in love with this movie at that moment. I don't have a source on the budget, but it did seem very cheap, and $300,000 does not seem like a whole lot of money. At least it didn't go to the movie's look. However, they had more name actors than Cooley High did last week.
There are a ton of characters in this movie.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were all necessary. Some of the subplots.
The rubbish guy?
For example, yeah. I think it may have made the movie more complicated than it should have been.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that detracted from some of the scams, which is what I would have liked to have seen more.
Right. It's the name of the movie.
Or just see how they were carried out instead of seeing what we saw, because it wasn't enough to explain it to me, how all these worked out.
And they didn't make very much money.
No, they were like nickel and diming all this. It's like, okay, I guess I go to McDonald's for dinner tonight.
I think we figured out that the $55 is like $305 today, and they had to split it 5 ways. And I was thinking, there's an episode of MASH, and there's like a trend that went viral where you start with one small thing and you trade up and up and up till you have one big thing. So they did that on an episode of MASH. I've seen that done in sort of a viral video thing these days. But that's not what happened here. Everything was small time. They didn't get bigger and bigger and bigger, which would have made more sense. They buy some cheap merchandise and sell it for more than it's worth, and then they'd sell that for more than it's worth, and up and up. But this was just empty boxes for money. That's all that happened here.
As far as we know, they didn't really explain it.
No, they didn't. But did you ever see anything come out of a box that wasn't garbage or nothing at all?
Not in this movie, no. So
it's interesting that this movie, like the last movie we reviewed, Cooley High, was shot in Chicago. And we saw some of the same actors. Lynn Caridine as Jan was Dorothy in Cooley High. Loved her here, loved her there. She could be in every movie. That would make me happy. She's so alive. I love to see her.
Robert Townsend was credited in this one. He wasn't credited in Cooley High.
His role was smaller here, though, wasn't it?
I think he had the same number of lines. But I think he said more in Cooley High, yeah.
Maybe. Stephen Williams was in both movies. He was Jimmy Lee in Cooley High and the manager here, which is a much smaller role.
Nate Reed here played the cook, and he was credited as Nathaniel Reed in Cooley High as Detective Number 1, George, as we stated earlier. And also, Joseph Carter Wilson, who had played Tyrone in Cooley High, appears here as bodyguard, but I wasn't able to pick him out. I don't remember a bodyguard in this movie. He must have been one of Goldie's men.
Yeah, there were a couple people that we saw with Gold. Well, remember in the Con Man Association meeting, there was the one guy there that we didn't know who it was? Was that him?
I couldn't tell you.
I think I would have recognized his face if he had had any screen time, because Tyrone was a big part of Cooley High, main character. So who knows? But yeah, they kept with the locals, but there were more SAG actors in this movie than there were in Cooley High, which had a higher budget. So that's kind of weird.
So in my mind, this movie came into town, all these local actors who had appeared in Cooley High.
Not long before that.
Thought, hey, we get to do this again. And they probably all tried out, and a handful of them got to be in both films. And they probably thought this was the start of a career for them. And
it wasn't.
For the vast majority of them, these 2 films was all that they ever did.
But being in Cooley High, which we both gave A+ to, was a big thing. So at least they had that. And then this too is sort of also ran.
Well, Lynn Caridine had a bigger part in Monkey Hustle than in Cooley High, which is probably pretty rare for anybody in this situation to be a non-professional actor doing a second film.
I don't know.
I think her part was better in Cooley High, but it wasn't bigger.
Right. And she was more fun in Cooley High than she was here. Here I was kind of like, why don't you beat up Player? He's the one cheating on you. These girls don't even know you exist. And they didn't really delve into the lives of the women in this movie either, of course. Same with Cooley High. I think only Vi really had a sort of emotional journey in this movie, you could say. But they're all young. They're all kids. So
that wasn't much of a journey.
She was mad at Wynn, and then she wasn't anymore. So.
Yeah, that's the extent of her journey. I
mean. That's why I'm saying she had something, but it wasn't much.
Leon got beat up, and she never saw him again until he showed up at the end of the movie and couldn't even get out of the car.
She took Wynn back pretty fast. There wasn't a lot of time spent fretting about forgiving him or not. She forgave him as soon as he broke into her room and woke her up from a dead sleep.
Well, it's probably because he had his shirt tied up. And
he shows off a lot of chest in this movie, more than anybody, even Rudy Ray Moore.
That's not true.
All right, so let's put a grade on this movie using our scale that we always use. A for awesome, I for intermediate, and P for pathetic.
Well, I think there are short bits of this movie that you could show clips from and think this is an A movie. But you put it all together, it's really kind of a mess. There's a lot of fun to be had here, but it doesn't really string through a plot of any kind. And with there being so many characters, it's really hard to follow. Plus, they all speak their version of street lingo that I'm not well acquainted with. So it was hard to follow at times. So I'm going to definitely have to dip it down to an I for those reasons. What are your thoughts, Cheryl?
I think I feel quite the opposite in that individual scenes, when you break them down, they don't really make sense. But as a whole, this movie is fun and it keeps moving. And we've already said this. When you stop and think about the movie and how everything played out, it doesn't make sense. But as a whole, it just keeps chugging along and it's a lot of fun. And I plan to give it an A. It's silly and goofy, but I really liked it. And for me, it's an A movie.
I guess you're right in that they set their goals and they met their goals.
However, they did it. We'll never know.
But as a viewer, I want to see how they did that. So I'm going to stick with my I.
No, I understand. I totally understand. I just feel the opposite way because I had fun watching this movie and it was better than I expected. And that's always a step towards an A for me, being better than I expect it to be.
To find out more about The Monkey Hustle and other films we've reviewed on the American International Podcast, visit our website, AIPpod.com. There you can watch trailers, see examples of advertising, posters and lobby cards, and other items that aren't available to you on an audio-only medium such as a podcast. You can also message us and let us know what you think of the podcast, what we could be doing better, what we've done that you love. We'd love to hear about it all. That's AIPpod.com.
And now we'll take a break from hustling. For the American International Podcast, I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And I'm Jeff Markin.
And we'll meet you at the drive-in.
Follow the American International Podcast on Instagram and Letterboxd at AIP_pod and on Facebook at facebook.com/American International Podcast.
The American International Podcast is produced and edited by Jeff Markin.
A man whose mind is distorted by hatred.
And Cheryl Lightfoot.
A girl hungry for too many things.
The American International Podcast is part of the Pop Culture Entertainment Network.